Far beyond the familiar stars in the cold depths of space where silence reigned, a faint and troubling signal echoed through the Galactic Council's vast communication networks. It was unlike any message they had received before, an urgent plea wrapped in mystery and fear. The Lithari, a reclusive alien race known for their advanced knowledge but cautious nature, had sent a distress call that sent ripples across the council chambers. The message was brief but powerful. Their homeworld was falling prey to a deadly plague that no technology or medicine they had could stop. The council members exchanged anxious glances. The Lithari were not known for seeking help lightly, especially not from other species. The sheer fact they had reached out meant their situation was dire beyond imagination. After much debate, the council decided to send a small expedition to assist the human team aboard the Resolute. Humans had a reputation for toughness, resourcefulness, and an uncanny ability to survive in harsh conditions, qualities that made them ideal candidates for such a perilous mission. As the Resolute approached the Lithari homeworld, its crew could not help but feel the weight of the task before them. The planet below was shrouded in swirling clouds and an eerie green glow that hinted at the planet's toxic atmosphere. The humans had trained for every possible danger: alien diseases, hostile environments, and unwelcoming natives, but nothing could fully prepare them for the unknown. Captain Mira Lawson stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic map showing the descent coordinates. She had led many missions before, but this was different. This was not a conquest, not a rescue from war. It was a delicate offering of help to a civilization on the brink of collapse. When the Resolute landed, the silence on the planet's surface was thick and oppressive. The air was heavier than Earth's, tinged with unfamiliar scents that stirred unease in the crew. The landing party disembarked cautiously, their suits adjusting to the alien environment. They moved toward the Lithari settlement, a place that looked fragile amid the planet's wild, untamed wilderness. The Lithari themselves appeared shortly after, tall, slender beings with shimmering skin that seemed to reflect the planet's strange light. Their eyes held a mix of hope and deep wariness. These were a proud people, known for their intellect and skill, but their faces betrayed exhaustion and fear. The leader of the Lithari delegation, a dignified figure named Varel, stepped forward, his voice calm but tinged with desperation. He welcomed the humans, but it was clear he was wary of their presence. The Resolute carried an Armada's firepower, a silent reminder that humans were not just explorers but warriors capable of great destruction. Varel's words were carefully chosen. "We did not ask for soldiers," he said softly. "We sought help to heal, not to be dominated." The humans understood immediately. The Lithari wanted allies, not conquerors. Captain Lawson responded with equal respect, assuring him that the humans came to aid, not to control. Still, the tension between the two groups was palpable. The Lithari had survived countless threats before, but this invisible plague was their greatest enemy. The Resolute's medics began immediate tests, their advanced equipment scanning the environment and the few patients still able to move. The symptoms were horrifying: wasting flesh, clouded minds, and a slow creeping death that no one could explain. As the hours passed, the humans discovered that the plague was unlike any they had faced. It was not simply a virus or bacteria, but something that seemed to twist the very biology of the Lithari. The native medicines failed, and the Lithari's advanced technology could not stop its spread. It was a mystery that weighed heavily on the human scientists, pushing them to find answers quickly before the entire population was lost. Meanwhile, the Lithari watched the humans closely, their skepticism growing despite the effort. They had seen other species come and go, bringing promises of help but leaving chaos behind. The humans' overwhelming presence felt like a storm on the horizon, powerful but uncertain if it would bring rain or destruction. Yet beneath the surface of doubt, a fragile trust began to form. The humans worked tirelessly alongside the Lithari, healers, sharing techniques and ideas. Captain Lawson held private meetings with Varel, both leaders understanding the gravity of their alliance. "We cannot afford to fight each other when there is a greater enemy," Lawson said, her voice steady. Varel nodded, a flicker of hope shining in his eyes. The Lithari had not seen hope in a long time, and the humans' arrival was the first sign of possible salvation. But just as the first tentative steps toward a cure were made, a new threat loomed on the horizon, one that neither the Lithari nor the humans had anticipated. In the darkness beyond the planet's orbit, unknown ships watched silently. Their intentions were unclear, but their presence was a warning that the Lithari's plea for help could turn into a struggle for survival on many fronts. Captain Lawson knew the humans' reputation as fierce warriors would soon be tested, but, for now, as the Resolute's crew worked side by side with their alien allies, the only certainty was that this mission was just beginning. The plague was a shadow over the Lithari world, and the humans had to be the light cutting through the darkness, if they could survive long enough to find it. The moment the humans stepped further into the Lithari homeworld, the true nature of this planet became impossible to ignore. It was not just a place struggling under the weight of disease. It was a death world in the purest sense, a harsh and unforgiving environment that tested every living creature's limits. The air was thick with humidity and an unsettling mix of unfamiliar scents, sharp and wild, like the warning cries of unseen predators lurking nearby. Jagged rocks and twisted trees covered the land, many pulsing faintly with strange bioluminescent glows that revealed just enough to unsettle anyone unfamiliar with the terrain. The ground itself was uneven and treacherous, hiding dangers beneath every step. Sharp thorns, sudden drops, and roots that moved just enough to threaten a stumble. The wildlife was even more dangerous, a blend of creatures that seemed designed to survive through aggression and cunning rather than strength alone. Large predators with eyes that gleamed in the low light stalked the shadows, their movements silent but deadly, while swarms of smaller insects, poisonous and fast, buzzed like dark clouds ready to strike. The human team quickly realized why. The Lithari had evolved such caution and strength. Few species could live here and thrive. Many of the humans' training drills, survival courses designed for extreme conditions, were put to the test immediately. They adapted quickly, learning to move silently, read the signs of approaching danger, and use the environment to their advantage. But it was clear that no amount of preparation could completely erase the constant threat that surrounded them. The Lithari watched carefully as their human allies moved through the wilderness, respecting the planet's dangers, but never letting fear stop them. Yet, the Lithari made one thing very clear. This was their world, and cooperation was the only way forward. They did not want to see humans take control or act as conquerors, no matter how powerful their technology and weapons might be. Instead, they insisted on working side by side, sharing knowledge and resources in a way that honored both species' strengths. This created a fragile but vital trust, as the humans and Lithari scientists began the challenging work of developing a cure for the plague. The laboratory, a complex blend of alien and human technology, buzzed with activity as both teams examined infected samples, studied the unique biology of the Lithari, and tested experimental medicines. The plague's nature was cruel and complex, attacking not just the body but the mind, twisting cells and causing symptoms that baffled even the most experienced medical minds. Every discovery led to more questions, and every failure reminded them of how little time they had. Outside the lab, the planet itself seemed to resist their efforts. Sudden storms roared through the forests, twisting trees into impossible shapes and forcing the teams to seek shelter with little warning. Strange creatures, curious and sometimes hostile, approached the camps at night, their glowing eyes watching silently from the darkness. The humans' weapons were a deterrent, but they could not let the planet's dangers distract from the urgent work of saving a civilization. In fact, the wild threats became a constant reminder that survival depended not just on science, but on respect for the fragile balance of life here. Captain Mira Lawson often walked the boundary between camp and wilds, her mind heavy with responsibility. She knew the humans' presence was both a blessing and a burden for the Lithari. Too much interference could disrupt the delicate ecosystems and the Lithari's way of life, but too little could mean losing an entire species to the plague. The pressure was enormous, and every decision carried weight beyond the mission itself. One night, a sudden attack shattered the fragile calm. A group of large predators, driven perhaps by hunger or anger, charged the camp's perimeter. Alarms blared and lights flared as humans and Lithari scrambled to defend the research facility. The battle was fierce but brief. The humans' tactics and weapons pushed the attackers back, though not without cost. The incident reminded everyone that this world did not forgive weakness, and the plague was not their only enemy. After the attack, Captain Lawson and Varel, the Lithari leader, met to discuss how to strengthen their defenses without turning the planet into a battleground. They agreed that their greatest strength lay not in weapons but in unity and understanding. The Lithari shared ancient survival techniques, teaching humans how to read the signs of the land, avoid dangerous creatures, and even use certain plants for medicine or defense. In return, humans shared technology that could monitor the environment and predict storms or animal movements. Slowly, a new rhythm emerged, one that combined human adaptability with Lithari wisdom. The scientists' work on the cure gained momentum, fueled by shared hope and determination. Days blurred into nights as breakthroughs and setbacks came in equal measure, but the bond between the two species grew stronger. In this brutal, beautiful death world, humans were not just survivors. They were partners, fighting for the survival of a civilization teetering on the edge. Yet amid this fragile cooperation, both knew that greater challenges awaited them, hidden deep within the planet's wild heart and beyond the stars. The plague was a relentless enemy, but so was the unforgiving world itself. Only by working together could they hope to turn the tide and rewrite the story of a planet once destined for death into one of survival and renewal. Just when hope began to blossom with the progress made on the cure, an unexpected shadow darkened. The horizon, a rival alien faction, appeared, their ships cutting through the blackness of space with a silent menace that sent chills through everyone on the Lithari planet. This faction was well known in the galaxy for their ruthless desire to claim any resource-rich world, caring little for its inhabitants or their struggles. As their fleet positioned itself in orbit, the humans aboard the Resolute prepared swiftly for what could become a devastating conflict. The Resolute's crew worked furiously to ready defenses and strategize, their experience in warfare a key advantage. But the Lithari leaders grew visibly distressed at the thought of a full-scale battle. Varel, the Lithari commander, met with Captain Lawson in a secluded area beneath the glowing canopy of alien trees, his voice heavy with urgency. "We begged for help to save our people, not to become a battlefield," he said quietly, his eyes reflecting the pain of years of survival and loss. The humans understood immediately. The Lithari wanted protection without the destruction that large-scale war would bring. They did not want their world to be consumed by fire and bloodshed. Accepting this delicate request, the humans shifted from their typical military tactics and began to devise a new plan, one that used stealth, speed, and deep knowledge of the Death World's dangerous terrain to outwit the invaders rather than overwhelm them with brute force. The humans and Lithari scouts worked side by side, blending human technology with Lithari survival skills. They mapped hidden paths through dense jungles, learned to move silently among the twisted roots, and used the planet's natural dangers as weapons themselves. Vicious predators, poisonous plants, and treacherous terrain became allies in a covert campaign of guerrilla warfare designed to frustrate and confuse the enemy fleet. Meanwhile, the invading faction, confident in their overwhelming numbers and firepower, grew increasingly frustrated as their supply lines were disrupted and their patrols ambushed without warning. The dense forests and unpredictable weather of the Lithari world proved to be far more than simple obstacles. They were living defenses that shielded the defenders. The humans laid traps using a combination of advanced technology and improvised tactics, sensor mines camouflaged by glowing plants, automated drones disguised as flying insects, and sudden flash fires that forced enemy patrols into deadly ambushes. Each encounter was brief but intense, with the humans striking quickly and vanishing into the wilds before the enemy could organize a counterattack. This approach frustrated the invaders, who had expected a traditional battle. They had come prepared for overwhelming force, but instead found themselves hunted in a strange and hostile land they barely understood. As days passed, tension mounted on both sides. The humans' restraint in not unleashing their full military might was both a strength and a challenge. They had to constantly balance aggressive defense with the need to honor the Lithari's plea for peace. Captain Lawson often reminded her crew that this mission was not about conquest or glory, but about protecting a fragile new alliance and preserving a world. At night, the forests echoed with the distant sounds of distant explosions and howls of alien creatures disturbed by the chaos, while close to camp whispered plans and rapid preparations continued. Varel's people, though physically weaker due to the plague, found renewed courage watching humans fight not as invaders, but as partners. Their hope grew, even as the shadow of war loomed. One particularly tense night, a small team of humans and Lithari scouts executed a critical mission to disable an enemy communications hub deep in the jungle. Moving silently beneath towering, glowing trees and navigating perilous cliffs, the team worked flawlessly together, each member relying on the other's unique skills. The mission was a success, cutting off a key link in the invaders' coordination and forcing them to scramble for control. But the victory came at a cost. A scout narrowly escaped a trap set by alien predators, reminding everyone that the planet itself did not forgive mistakes. This incident strengthened the bond between humans and Lithari even more. It was clear that survival depended not only on fighting the invaders, but on respecting and understanding the planet's brutal ecosystem. As weeks passed, the humans refined their tactics, using the Deathworld's dangers not just for defense but to create zones the enemy dared not enter. They learned to predict storms that would flood enemy camps, and how to lure aggressive wildlife toward intruders. Every success came with a price, every move shadowed by the risk of loss. But the humans never lost sight of their promise to the Lithari, to protect without dominating. Meanwhile, the plague's threat continued to hang over the settlement, like a dark cloud reminding all involved that this fight was more than a war over land or resources. It was a battle for the survival of an entire species. Captain Lawson often reflected on the strange path they walked, fighting a hidden enemy without destroying the very world they sought to save, standing with allies who feared their power yet depended on it, and using every tool at their disposal in a game where one mistake could mean the end. The tension built steadily, not just between the two alien factions but within the human ranks as well, as they wrestled with the moral weight of war and the urgent need to save lives. Yet through it all, one truth remained clear. This was not a war of annihilation but a fight for balance, a test of humanity's ability to fight with honor and restraint, in a universe that often rewarded only power and conquest. As the hidden threats continued to challenge every step forward, the humans and Lithari prepared for the uncertain days ahead, knowing that the final battle was not yet fought, but the bonds forged in the shadow of danger would be the true legacy of this war. And as the stars flickered coldly overhead, both allies and enemies braced themselves for the coming storm, where survival would depend not just on strength, but on cunning, courage, and an unbreakable will to protect what mattered. After countless days and sleepless nights, the breakthrough finally came. The human and Lithari scientists, working side by side under the flickering lights of the joint laboratory, succeeded in synthesizing a cure for the deadly plague that had gripped the Lithari population with an iron grip. The air in the lab was thick with tension and hope as the first treated patients began to show signs of recovery. Color returned to their cheeks, clarity to their eyes, and strength to their limbs. The relief was palpable, but it was tempered by the fragile reality of what lay ahead. The cure was not a miracle. It was a beginning, a first step on a long and uncertain road to healing an entire world ravaged not only by disease but by fear and vulnerability. The Lithari were still weak, their population fragile, and the scars left by the plague would not vanish overnight. As news of the cure spread through the settlement, a cautious optimism bloomed among the people. But outside, the borders of their planet, the threat of the rival alien faction still loomed like a dark storm cloud. The invading fleet remained in orbit, their presence a constant reminder that the struggle for this death world was far from over. Captain Mira Lawson and her crew faced a difficult choice. The humans had the power to stay, to bring their full, Armada, to defend the planet with overwhelming force if necessary. Their military might could push back the invaders decisively, securing the Lithari homeworld as a protected ally in the galaxy. But when the offer was made to the Lithari leaders, the response was immediate and resolute. Varel, standing tall despite the weight of his people's suffering, spoke for his people with quiet strength. "We are grateful for your aid, and your courage has saved many lives," he said. "But we will not become pawns in a larger empire. We seek to rebuild on our own terms, to stand on our own feet, not to live in the shadow of another's power." This declaration sparked a tense dialogue that stretched through days of negotiation, debate, and heartfelt conversations between humans and Lithari. The humans struggled to understand the depth of the Lithari's desire for sovereignty, their wish to be partners rather than subjects, allies rather than dependents. For the humans, used to their own strength and influence in the galaxy, the calm idea of stepping back was difficult. Yet Captain Lawson knew that true help was not about control or dominance. It was about respect and trust. The discussions grew complex, touching on history, culture, and the painful lessons learned by both species. The Lithari spoke of their long history of independence, their survival through countless hardships, and their fierce pride in their identity. They feared that accepting permanent protection would erode that identity, turning them into something less than what they were. The humans shared their own stories of hardship and survival, explaining that their offer was born from respect and a desire to empower, not to conquer. Slowly, a mutual understanding began to form, a recognition that true assistance must honor the freedom and dignity of those it helps. In common ground, the humans proposed a different path. They would leave behind only a small embassy and advisory team tasked with sharing knowledge, technology, and support, but never to interfere in the Lithari's self-determination. The Lithari would control their own defense forces, rebuild their society, and make their own choices about their future. This offer was accepted cautiously, and preparations began for a gradual human withdrawal from the planet's surface while maintaining communication and aid channels open. The tension of the situation remained, however, as the rival faction's fleet continued to hover nearby, a reminder that peace was fragile and the Lithari's independence was still at risk. The humans and Lithari worked together to strengthen planetary defenses using local resources and knowledge, blending human technology with native tactics to prepare for any possible attack. Despite the looming danger, a new chapter opened, one marked by hope, respect, and the promise of renewal. Captain Lawson often reflected on the complex meaning of assistance and sovereignty as she walked through the recovering settlement. She saw children playing where once there had been despair, heard laughter replacing cries, and witnessed the slow but steady rebuilding of homes and communities. Yet she also understood that trust was a fragile thing, built slowly and easily broken. The humans' presence had changed the Lithari world, and how that change would shape the future was uncertain. In private moments, Lawson and Varel shared conversations about the future, about the possibility of peace, about the meaning of freedom, and about the role humanity could play in a galaxy filled with unknown dangers and fragile alliances. They both knew the road ahead would not be easy, but they were united in a vision, a future where the Lithari could thrive on their own terms, with humans standing beside them as true partners rather than rulers. As the stars shone cold and distant above the recovering planet, the humans prepared to leave, carrying with them lessons learned about strength, humility, and the true meaning of help. The choice made here echoed far beyond this world, a reminder that in the vastness of space, respect and trust were as vital as any weapon or technology. And so, the cure was more than a medicine. It was a symbol of hope and a test of what it meant to be truly free. As the final days of their mission approached, the humans aboard the Resolute prepared to step back from the Lithari homeworld, a decision shaped by months of hard lessons and deep respect. The cure had been delivered, the plague held at bay, and the once fragile Lithari population was beginning to stand tall once more. Yet the lingering threat of the rival faction still cast a shadow over the planet, a reminder that peace was fragile and the future uncertain. Despite their overwhelming military power and the ability to dominate, the humans had learned something far more valuable. True strength lay not in conquest but in honor and partnership. Captain Mira Lawson, standing on the ridge overlooking the bustling settlement, watched as the Lithari rebuilt their homes and lives with steady hands and hopeful hearts. The dense forests, once silent witnesses to despair, now hummed softly, with life and cautious optimism. She felt a profound sense of pride and humility in the mission they had undertaken. The humans had come as warriors ready to fight and protect with overwhelming force, but had become guardians instead, silent sentinels who knew when to stand back and when to stand strong. At the final council meeting, representatives from both species gathered beneath the bioluminescent glow of ancient trees, their faces illuminated by soft lights and the flicker of hopes shared between worlds. The humans presented their pledge, a limited presence on the planet, small but steady, focused on sharing knowledge, technology, and survival skills rather than imposing power. They would establish a modest embassy, staffed by diplomats and scientists, a bridge for communication and support, but never a garrison of soldiers or an occupying force. The Lithari leaders listened intently, their expressions a mix of relief and cautious hope. They accepted this promise as a gift, one that respected their sovereignty and allowed them to reclaim their world with pride and independence. Captain Lawson spoke plainly, her voice steady with conviction. We came to help, not to rule. Our strength is yours to call upon, never to impose. This is our vow to you and to the galaxy. We are guardians, not conquerors. The words were met with nods and quiet applause, a moment of understanding that transcended language and culture. In the days that followed, the humans shared their knowledge freely, teaching advanced techniques for environmental monitoring, medical care, and planetary defense that the Lithari could adapt to their own needs. They trained local patrols in guerrilla tactics learned from the brutal Deathworld environment, combining human ingenuity with native skill to create a formidable force ready to protect their home. This partnership was not built on dominance but on mutual respect and trust. The rival factions' ships still loomed in orbit, but their presence had been diminished, discouraged by the resilience and unity of the planet's defenders. The Lithari, once vulnerable and broken, had reclaimed their place in the stars, not as subjects of a foreign power but as proud survivors and protectors of their own destiny. For the humans, the departure was bittersweet. Bonds had been formed in the crucible of crisis, friendships that spanned species and cultures forged in fire and hope. As the Resolute prepared to leave orbit, Captain Lawson took one last look at the world below, a planet scarred but healing, dangerous but full of life, and above all, free. She knew their mission was just one story in the vast tapestry of the universe, but it was one that would echo far beyond this small corner of space. Humanity's reputation as fierce warriors was well earned, but it was their honor and restraint that would truly define them. The promise made here, to protect only when needed, to never dominate, would be carried as a beacon for others to follow. As the stars stretched endlessly ahead, the humans charted their course for the next journey, leaving behind a legacy of courage, respect, and hope. The Lithari, watching the departure from their world, felt the strength of that promise. Deep in their hearts, they were no longer alone. They had allies who understood that true power was measured not by the might of weapons, but by the bonds forged in trust and the willingness to stand beside others without stepping over them. And so, in the vast silence of space, the story of two species united by challenge and choice became a testament to what it truly meant to survive and to thrive.